Good morning and welcome everyone to Moneycontrol live stream. You're watching the opening bell and I'm your host Nickey Mirchandani. Well, few of updates out there. Well, Indian equity markets are set for a weak start coming in on account of global cues and also ahead of Federal Reserve Powell's pivotal speech, which could see a shift coming in for equity markets. GIFT Nifty is indicating for a weak start coming in for the last read. And if you talk about the US market, they slid ahead of Jackson Hole's speeches. US benchmark indices, they have essentially clocked in the worst day since March, and Federal Reserve officials essentially have warned in for more interest rate hikes, which could be needed. Asian shares have also given up gains after the sharp uptick that we saw in technology shares, and FIIs, they continue to buy shares to an extent of 1,525 odd crores. DIIs have purchased equities to an extent of 5,800 odd crore, and stocks that have seen highest delivery interest, the names includes the like of Infosys, Coforge and Bosch, amongst others. So essentially IT names that have seen strong delivery interest. Apart from that, let's also talk about few other stocks that are expected to be in focus and address the FIIs and FNOs ahead of the stocks and news, where FIIs have been net sellers to an extent of 439 crore in index futures. They've been buying index options and also have been buyers in bank Nifty options. So essentially, these are the two places where they've been buyers, index options and bank Nifty options. They've been selling the bank Nifty futures, stock futures, or for that matter, even index futures. Let's talk about the PCR. 0.78 compares to that of 1.05. In terms of stocks and news that we need to address this morning, first one, of course, will be Paytm. To keep a close eye out on this one, Antfin is expected to sell in 3.6% stake in Paytm via block deal. The floor price is set to an extent of 880 per share, which indicates a discount of nearly 3% as compared to the previous market price. Bharat Electronics, another one which has continued, which, there's some amount of traction which is already building in these stocks, defense names per se. Bharat Electronics, in account of news today, where the Defense Council has approved procurement from BEL and it's going to be procuring in electronic warfare suits. Essentially for helicopters. So these are one of them, one of the company which is expected to be in focus on account of the order line which is coming. Coforge, a key one that you need to talk about and probably keep an eye out on. 8 investors have picked in 10.3% equity in the company. The funds name include SBI, Morgan Stanley, Kotak Funds, ICICI Prudential and HDFC, amongst others. Also, the promoter has exits with this is selling in approximately 26% stake for a consideration of around 7,683 odd crore. What Jefferies essentially has to say on Coforge is it's upgraded to buy, target price of 6,250, says the sale of the entire promoter equity removes the key overhang on the counter. Long-term growth story is intact, has been doing well as compared to that of peers and has outperformed Nifty IT by almost 26% over the last 1 month. It expects a 15% constant currency revenue CAGR and 22% EPS CAGR from FY24 to FY26. The PE multiples also are expected to re-rate. That's one. And also Aurobindo Pharma, where the promoter has restarted process of selling majority stake in injectable business, but the valuation has been brought down to $2.5 billion as compared to $3 billion that we've seen previously. The company is going to be putting in negotiation with Blackstone amongst multiple other players, and it's going to be selling off the entire injectable unit and spinning off as a separate entity put together. But let's address the technical side of the story, and to understand the market strategies and the recommendations, we're being joined by Sneha Seth, Derivative Research Analyst at Angel One out there. Good morning there.
Very good morning.
All right, what do you make out of the trade setup given the PCR that we're sitting at 0.73? Do you see a weak start ahead of the important global event? What is the strategy that you'll suggest to our viewers out there?
So if we see market yesterday, we did see a strong rally towards 19,600, but again, it wasn't a sustainable move. We did see a sharp profit booking. In fact, we have, it is possibly, the probability is quite high that we may open a little lower and maybe towards 19,300 zone. So I think at present, 19,250, 300 is an important support zone. So considering the put call ratio, which is hinting that market is a bit oversold. Apart from that, if you see FIs, there also we have seen them buying in equities despite such selling. So I think overall we need to see today's session what happens, because the follow-up move is very important in today's session. If it respects any 19,250, 300 on the closing basis today, and if we see a sharp up move towards at least 19,350, 400 zone, so I would say that the market, whatever kind of pain we saw yesterday must have been improved, and we can see a follow-up move towards 19,600 plus levels. If today's session we don't see any recovery and we see closing below at least 19,300, so that won't be a very good indication. If you see banking index was outperforming of late, but there also we have seen a sharp correction, and there if you see 44,200, 44,000, that is the immediate support zone. So today's move will be very important to watch out.
All right. Also, what do you recommend for our viewers out there, which could be profitable ideas to them?
See, today we need to be very selective. I've selected two counters today for a buy trade because I don't expect a major correction, seeing the data at least. But yes, because if you see the correction wasn't supported with short positions in key indices. So I believe there can be a possibility that we may see a rebound. So I would suggest SBI Life in equities. If you see the counter has corrected decently, but has been taking a support near 89 EMA of late. I think, from your current levels, we can go ahead and buy in the range of 1295, 1300 with a strict stop loss of 1274, and the target you can expect around 1344. Apart from this, Asian Paints, that counter also looks good. If you see yesterday, despite such a sharp selling overall, we have seen this counter closing almost 2% higher. If we see this counter has corrected recently, and there was a resistance around 3,225 odd zone, and yesterday's closing is around same level. So I expect an up move in this particular counter. So would recommend buying in the range of 3,215, 3,225. The stop loss should be maintained around 3,150, and the targets will be around 3,305.
All right, Sneha, we are just gonna, just be on the sidelines. We'll address the market open and come back to you and check with you. Few of other things, Coforge, Reliance Industry, where the AGM is gonna take place. Clearly, we are looking at a weak start coming in for market open out there. Let's see if it's playing according to global cues. At least that was the expectation, and there we are. It's a weak start, 0.5% of losses coming in for the market. Below that 19,300 mark remains to be seen. It's some amount of serious correction, which is technically now culminating into market for a past few couple of sessions out there. Let's talk about Bank Nifty, where we're seeing losses also to an extent of 0.5% out there. The number is roughly around that 44,000 mark, 44,200 level. Remains to be seen if some support can come in during the second half of the session. Mid-cap index too, losses to an extent of 0.5% out there. And small cap index, well, minuscule, but there, 0.1% of loss coming in even for small cap index per se. Let's talk about the sectoral indices that we have. Coforge and probably Infosys saw some delivery interest, and today's session, the counter entire basket is down and out with losses to an extent of 0.5% out there. In terms of other sectoral indices that we have, the pharma, FMCG, the defensive pack essentially, that's also trading lower, downtick to an extent of 0.2%. FMCG acting no different, losses to an extent of 0.3% out there. Well, the story for defensive right now seems to be a little muted, at least when it comes to the opening deals. Rate sensitives, well, auto at least at this point of time is acting no different. Banking story, as you saw, bank index also was down and out with losses. Metal index is probably that we need to watch out for, just to see if we are seeing some amount of gains coming in on that index. Remains to be seen, a bit of volatile prey which was coming for the metal index. Whether or not it's participating today and probably bucking the trend remains to be seen. In terms of advances and declines, 24 advances as compared to 25 declines. Market breadth, beg your pardon, it's updated number, advances 7, declines 44. So the market breadth clearly is in the favor of declines. Let's talk about the top gainers and the top losers. Bajaj Finserv, Asian Paints and Power Grid, top gainers on the index out there. ONGC, Bajaj Auto and Hero MotoCorp. So Bajaj group of companies essentially is in focus. Infosys, Nestle India and Britannia. These are some of the other top gainers that we have overall on the list. Let's talk about the top losers. Hindalco, Ultratech Cement and Wipro. These are some of the top losers that we have along with Reliance, Adani Enterprises and SBI. You can see the divergent trend which is technically playing out for IT names, right? Infosys is one of the top gainers and Wipro is one of the top losers. Some amount of solid selling which is coming for Coforge. If we can pull up that chart, because we've seen maximum selling coming through for Coforge, where the promoter essentially has sold off. What do you make out of it, Sneha, for Coforge and the other IT names?
If we see Coforge, yes, we have seen a smart run of late, and I think anyone who's holding it, I would say for a positional trader, I would say recommend to continue holding. We may see some dips, but I think 5,100 would be a good support zone for now. So that until and unless we are seeing or we are trading, we manage to trade above that, I think the bias there should be positive in this case.
All right. Also, Reliance AGM, which is expected to take place on August 28th. A bunch of announcements ranging from telecompanies, retail business timelines, 5G rollout, and it's essentially the 46th AGM next week. What do you make out of it right now on technical levels? Do the charts look attractive?
At present, I believe the kind of selling we have seen, there is a support around 2,450 odd levels, and we are just trading around those levels. So it will be important for today, if we see a recovery from the lower side. So at present, today's low should be acting as a support. And if we don't see a correction below that, that is around 2,440 odd levels. So if we are expecting those levels and we see a smart recovery from here on, then possibility is there that we can head higher. If we see a correction below at least 2,400 odd zone, then there are possibilities this counter can correct towards at least 2,345, 47 odd levels.
All right. And anything attractive that you find otherwise? Any recommendations that you'd like to give us over and above what you've suggested?
I would say that at present, the thing is that there are many banking space counters which has done quite well, and the kind of profit booking what we saw yesterday, yes, we did not see any major selling at so far. So I would say that if any dips, today's dips, I would suggest that we can go ahead and buy ICICI Bank, or we can also think about Axis Bank in that case. So this is the counters which I'm liking, and I think the dip should be bought in at this level.
Okay. Apart from that, anything that looks interesting within the mid-cap space? Because that's the one where the index is probably at record high. So anything over and above in index mid-cap space per se?
At present, I don't have any counter. Yes, we were having Asian Paints and the other counter which I mentioned. But so far, we'll have to see and then come up with the fresh calls.
All right, Sneha, we're just going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to us. All right, let's understand how the fundamentals have been shaping up. FII seems to be coming back to the markets, and probably a little bit of surge that we've seen, at least in today's number. But overall, how is the trend shaping up for equity markets? Let's understand and get a perspective from Vivek Mashrani, CFA, founder, Technofunda Investing out there. What sense are you picking up from the markets, given the kind of surge in retail participation that we've seen? Sure, it's a weak start, and a couple of factors globally that we are waiting. How are you looking at the setup right now, and what's your target looking at?
Yeah, so broadly, I think the magic is happening inside the mid cap and small cap space. Overall, Nifty has been lackluster since few days and not having directionally any kind of moves. But I think mid cap index, except today, it's like very, very good, strong trend. Even small cap index is on a very, very good trend. So I think make most of this party. Of course, there will be small correction as soon as possible whenever there is a fund outflows. But so far, overall, I think the trend still looks good and very, very strong in terms of mid and small cap side of the things.
Even MPC members have suggested some amount of caution in near-term pickup in inflation. With that in perspective and a couple of global factors that are expected to be at play, given the fears of interest rate hikes, how are you looking at overall rate-sensitive basket? Because in this quarter, we've seen a bit of NIM compression coming in for the banking space. The disbursal growth is probably higher for NBFCs as compared to banks. Are you still holding a positive view coming in for banks, or the story seems to be fading out a bit now?
See, I think we have to look at this space very, very selective. Some of the banks were really beaten down. The multiples were compressed. And there we are seeing, re-rating, particularly in the SFB space, in, PSU banking space. But definitely, some of these large banks like HDFC, Kotak of the world, there I don't see any kind of major moves coming in. It's more or less lackluster move that is happening inside the company. Apart from that, I feel that, since it's an election year coming very soon and a lot of activity happening in the infra space, there, the circulation of money and lending is also picking up. So that ways, I am betting more on the growth of the economy and the multiplier effect on the financial sector or the banking sector. That is what my view is currently for the entire sector. And of course, interest rates in India, particularly, I don't see it rising further. It has been, stagnant, and directionally, I see that going down only from here onwards, because despite all the things happening outside, the inflation in India has been in a very, very controlled situation so far. And I'm sure because of election, government will make all its efforts to again curb inflation in the best possible way.
Sure, that was more on the macros, but if you look at from the equity market perspective, you see the multiplier effect coming in on the banking sector. Yes. As compared to banks and NBFCs, where are you more bullish?
Yeah, so more bullish on NBFCs and small finance bank sectors, so SFBs, yes.
All right, let's also talk about IT, because a bit of sell-off that we've seen overall on the IT sector. Per se, Coforge is where it gets interesting, right? Because the promoter has completely exited out. You've seen slew of investors which have come in. But overall, the story still remains a little bit cautious given the shocker that Infosys has delivered when it comes to overall outlook and the guidance that it has given. Do you think it's a great opportunity to go and lap these shares at this point, a value buy?
No, I think probably, there'll be still more pain and growth issues in the large cap IT space. So I'm not very bullish on the large cap IT per se, but yes, I'm holding few names in mid cap IT, and just as a disclaimer, Coforge I'm holding as of now. And there are a lot of plays in the mid cap space and even small cap IT space where there is entire turnaround is happening. So basically bases are getting formed and the numbers have started coming. So if you see a lot of these companies like KPIT, Mphasis, LTM, Mindtree, Coforge, the numbers have been encouraging and things are moving in the right direction. And back in US also, there is NASDAQ 100 getting turned around. Of course, in between, there'll be blips and some bit of correction that is happening. But directionally, that has recovered very well. And the Indian IT sector in the mid-cap space is also showing that kind of growth trajectory because of that. So I'm more, optimistic on the mid-cap IT space rather than large-cap IT space. I feel there'll be still some bit of consolidation. I don't see a major downtrend from here on, but it could be more of a prolonged consolidation that could happen in the large-cap IT space from here as well.
Also, your view coming in on Bajaj Finance. What do you make out of it? Today there is an initiation report from Nomura out there where they've said that the fears concerning Jio Financials probably is overdone now for this counter and things are expected to play out for this company just the way it is in terms of the growth story over the medium term. What kind of AUM do you expect the company can deliver? Are you also gung-ho on the counter?
No, so I'm not tracking Bajaj Finance very, very closely, but on a 36,000 feet view, I believe that Geo Financial will still take some time to get itself rooted in the space. And by that time, I'm sure Bajaj Finance is smart enough to find out some counter strategies and protect its market share. But definitely, it's a space to watch because they have disrupted the space before in the telecom segment, also in the media space also. So let's see. It's more like a wait and watch, but I'm not very, very closely tracking Bajaj Finance as of now.
All right. So any global cues that you'd be keenly watching out for, given that we are looking at a Fed chairman's speech coming at Jackson Hole today? What are you looking at? What kind of expectations do you have? Do you think that will have a bearing on the equity markets? Overall, what direction are you looking in for markets right now?
Of course. So I think, see, if they increase the interest rates further, we'll definitely have some kind of squeeze in terms of fund flow, which is coming to India. But as far as they are keeping it constant or they decrease, which is a rare scenario, I don't feel they will decrease the interest rates. But as far as they keep it constant and don't tweak it too much, I think we should be fine. And I'm more bullish in the Indian side of the things, where a lot of growth related trajectories are happening because of election year. There are a lot of movements that is happening. So I feel unless we are like invested in US or Nasdaq 100, these kind of macro blips will keep happening. Only thing is to focus on the growth trajectory in the Indian space as of now.
What are you focusing on ahead of the election? It's a pre-election year. Yeah. Probably defense story, infra story. Does that probably attract you at this time? Are you skimming through the financials of these companies?
Yeah, so in fact, I've been bullish on defense sector since almost last year. I've also done a detailed video on that on my YouTube channel. And the kind of orders and the kind of directional strategy which we are playing out here in terms of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and a lot of components which were produced outside, we are taking it inside and producing back home. That is itself a very, very structural story. Of course, we need to look at valuation and the execution, how they go about it. But definitely this sector is in our radar. Second sector is, of course, some of the capex related sectors where you can see the proxies of the capex cycle that is happening. So say, for example, again, not a recommendation, if you want to play a power sector reforms in our country and capex related to that, you can look at companies like Apar Industry. Or if you want to see building material related stuff that is going on in terms of cements and a lot of other things which are getting consumed due to infrastructure, you can again see proxies like piping companies, or you can see companies in terms of ancillary which are getting provided to these sectors. So that is how I'm playing this sector, and definitely it is in radar. And of course, apart from that, I'm also playing pharma and IT turnaround, which is broadly happening. And of course, the auto ancillary space remains to be very, very robust. We have seen some amazing moves in companies like Gabriel and those kind of EV space also, where things are really looking really good in terms of the kind of moves it is giving. Again, disclaimer, these are not recommendations, just an example of how these entire sectors are shaping up.
Anything from the defense space that you like, given the slew of orders that have come in? Investors, viewers out there seem to be pretty gung-ho right now, given the kind of potential of the space in terms of order book, in terms of revenue execution. Let's talk about valuations. Do you find that justifiable at this time?
So if they execute the kind of orders they are getting, still there is a lot of room of upside in terms of valuation. But that remains a very, very key risk. Historically, we have seen back in 2008-9 how power sector, there are a lot of order books, but then, they failed to execute and the profitability they could not maintain. And then the entire power sector, which was gung-ho back in 2009, 10, 11, they generally, collapsed in the overall scenario. So I feel more than valuation, the key to watch is how they are able to execute these order book. There will be no dearth of orders. The kind of indigenization we are doing, there will be so many orders that will be coming, not only right now, but even in future from even exports. So we have done some of the export related orders also. I think in Spain, they've got some order from Southeast Asia. They've got some order in terms of submarines and all. So that trend will continue if we are able to execute, right? So it's matter of execution, and the best way to play out this entire sector would be more like a basket approach, where if you are bullish on, say, shipbuilding or, submarine kind of play, you create a basket of, say, Mazdog and GRE Shipping and likes of all these players. If you are gung-ho on in terms of, say, aircraft, you can again have a basket of it, or you can have an entire defense play basket. Okay, so that is how I think this space needs to be played out, and any player who are executing that could be topped up in that sector basket. But definitely there is an execution risk, and that should be predominantly watched in terms of your idea execution.
Point well taken, Vivek. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to us this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, with this, it's a wrap, and goodbye from the entire team who puts this piece together. Thank you so much for watching, and please do post your feedback for us in the comment section below. Follow us in the link at the bottom of your screen, and for rest of the updates, stay tuned into moneycontrol.com and Moneycontrol app.
How do world leaders view India?
I've long believed that the relationship between the United States and India will be one of the defining relationships of the 21st century.
The bright spot of the global economy.
The growth rate for India, which is 6.8 in 2022. Let's not forget, this is one of the bright spots in the global economy right now, such a high growth rate.
The potential of India is enormous, and you have now a reformer, a radical reformer, who has the ability to transform it.
On the verge of a big transformation.
इस अमृत काल में हमारे संकल्पों की सिद्धि हमें आजादी के 100 वर्ष तक ले जाएगी.
A magnet for investment.
I'm actually incredibly excited about the future of India. I think India has more promise than any large country in the world.
The world is bullish on India. Moneycontrol is bullish on India. Join the campaign. Tweet to us with #MC Bullish on India.